everybody? Thanks for being with me today, and thanks for your patience while I got the show started. We're running a little bit behind today, but I apologize for that. Several things I want to get into today, and looking forward to talking with you folks about that. You can head on over, if you would like to vocal.com. That's VOCL.com. You can also go to Rumble if you would like to. You can watch us on Facebook and on YouTube as well. All of that. Just look for the Aaron Barker Show. And for me, great to be here. Happy that it's broadcast day, and happy that we're able to talk about some things today. There's some serious matters, I guess, I want to get to today, and that's really because there are several things going on right now that, of course, with the Epstein Files continuing, and then with Trump's decision to release a bunch of information about UFO disclosures that asks you, or that raises the question, is this really just a mass distraction? Is this just something that Trump is doing to as a sleight of hand to get us to not pay attention to the files that are right before our face? And that is one of those questions I think we need to be asking, because it's almost like it's the Bill Clinton pill factory after the Monica Lewinsky thing happened. He drops bombs on pill factories to make sure that nobody's paying attention to the fact that he was, cheating on his wife in the Oval Office. And I am, just want to make sure. I just want to make sure that we don't get distracted and don't move beyond one of the biggest cover-ups that I think I've seen in my lifetime. So whether or not we're going to allow something as horrible as the Epstein Files be brushed under the rug is something that we have to ask ourselves if you're willing to let that happen, or if you're just going to just move on as if nothing's going on, because it doesn't target or doesn't go after the people you want it to. I see these stories all the time. More information coming out about people that are in the Epstein Files. We had Les Wexner this past week, that's being questioned because of his financing. Gave over $1 billion. Can you imagine that? They were talking about, the fact that he gave $1 billion is what went to Jeffrey Epstein from Les Wexner. And he's like, I don't know where the money went. It's just $1 billion. I don't know where my money was going. If $10 goes out of our bank account, my wife and I are like, freaking, what's that? What are we doing? Who's streaming? Who paid for that? What'd you buy? We're on it. If it's $10, if it's $1, I'm calling the bank. Like, what's going on with this? Who took this dollar out of my account? What's up with this fee? And especially in now when we're looking at energy prices and energy bills in this region, this area that I'm in. Which I'm in Kentucky, people's energy bills, people's electric bills are almost as much as their mortgage is every month. And I'm trying to figure out, why are people paying that kind of money? So we're paying exorbitant amounts of money just to keep the houses warm and our lights on and the television on and the electronics working and the kitchen running so we can fix food for our families, right? And you've got Les Wexner like, just $1 billion, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. I mean, I wish I could talk about $1 billion the way that he does. But, we see some people that are being brought to justice. Prince Andrew, of course, we're hoping that he is completely defrocked and taken down. But, it really doesn't surprise me, however, when certain political parties circle the wagons and protect their own. Just going back to most of our lifetimes, I mean, some of us, were alive, with plenty of more administrations. But if you go back to just Bill Clinton and his administration and what he did during his time in office, where he was actively engaging in sexual assault, he had been charged with sexual assault. He was caught with an intern in the Oval Office. And go feminism, because rather than woman power and rather than Hillary Clinton saying, I'm not going to put up with this, I'm not going to be disrespected like this, she chose instead a political walk of fame, a political walk. Now some people be like, well, it's the Christian thing to do, to forgive. It's the Christian thing to do. Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll go with the whole Christian thing it is to forgive. But we're talking about sexual assault. All right, we're talking about actually physically assaulting someone and violating them. That's the difference. A man or a woman catches their spouse committing adultery. Like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. It's devastating. You have a choice. You can either stay with that person and work it out and forgive them and move on, or you can, you're biblically justified to do both. You can divorce that person, or you can stay with that person and, forgive them of their of what they've done against you and work on the relationship and fix it. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about just your standard run-of-the-mill adultery. I mean, we're talking about actual assault, where some other person is violated, some other person is assaulted, they're violently attacked, and their innocence has been ripped away. Their safety has been ripped away. You've violated that person's existence, and you will mess that person up for the rest of their life. Now it's going to be looking over their shoulder. Now it's going to be worried about where they're going. It's going to be is what I'm wearing too provocative? Is how I'm walking too provocative? Should I go down that street? Should I walk into that restaurant? Should I go to this place to meet my friend by myself? It's a constant. You mess somebody up when you assault them. Not only, if their person's mugged, it's going to happen. In car accidents, it happens. They're traumatized. With sexual assault, you've traumatized that person. You've done that to that person, and you have robbed them of their ability to feel safe in their own space and to feel safe in their existence. And for a woman to be like, oh well, he's my husband and I love him and I want to stand next to him, and I find that unacceptable. I find it completely unacceptable. If it ever happened to anybody in my life, and it was a man who did it, or even a female, you have females out there that are they're dropping dropping their pants for high school boys, and you have if it happens on either side, if you have somebody in your family, if a spouse, whatever that significant other is, a wife or a husband, if they sexually assault another person, you're out. You're done. You're gone. There's no forgiveness for that, because I can't forgive you for something you did to somebody else, right? I can't forgive you for assaulting another person. If I say, well, I forgive, Hillary Clinton says, I forgive my husband and I want to work this out. Well, Hillary, it's not your place to forgive your husband. You're not the one he violated. So go feminism, right? But you look all the way back, nothing happened to him as far as charges. He was impeached, but big whoop, that didn't do anything. There was nothing that happened to Bill Clinton during that sex scandal that would damage his reputation or damage his public persona at all. The Democrats and liberals circled around him. And, there were scandals when George W. Bush was in the White House. There were homosexual prostitutes and strippers that were being taken into the White House. And there's stories about this. The guy who headed it up was telling people that he was there and was doing all this. Nothing happened with him either. This has been going on. And the wagons have been circled. And people look around and they're like, and I know I've asked these questions as well. Why are the Epstein Files? Why are people not prosecuting, et cetera? We know why they're not prosecuting, because they protect their own. You protect your own. That's all that they care about. Because if one, it's a domino effect. If one goes down, they all go down. So when you get up into the higher echelons, the upper elite, the deep state, actually, when you get into the deep state, nothing is getting out of there. It's like a big, massive secret society, of course. That's what it is. But when you get into the upper elite, the upper echelons of government work, and the tippy, it's just like you're starting to barely break into the deep state there. When you get that high in government, it isn't about Republican versus Democrat. Hell, when you get into your state Senate offices and your U.S. national Senate offices, they don't care about left and right. They're having cigars and drinking with each other, sharing each other's wives, all that stuff. They're not worried about left and right. They're worried about power. They have to keep their power. They have to make sure that they stay where they are and they don't lose their status. The whole point of that was the whole point of that is to protect your own. That's why Donald Trump, that's the answer to the question, I should say. That's why the people that's why the liberals didn't do anything about this. That's why the Democrats didn't do anything about this. That's why Obama didn't do anything about this. That's why Biden didn't do anything about this. And then Trump is narcissistic enough to think that if he releases this information, it's still not going to damage him and it's still not going to hurt him. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of supporters that are showing that that's absolutely true. There are a lot of supporters. It doesn't matter what information you show them that at least brings a question to, why don't we research this a little bit more? Why don't we have them investigate this a little bit more? Why don't we look into this a little bit more? There are Trump supporters out there that say absolutely, positively, no way that this guy had anything to do with it. I mean, there are still people saying that Obama wasn't involved in scandals when he was president as well. There were scandals. Look at Fast and Furious, that scandal. Look at the fact that he was bombing weddings in foreign countries and killing U.S. citizens. Look at his attack and his assault on the press and free speech. I mean, people will deny and deny and deny, and they will not allow their idols to be assaulted physically, or I'm sorry, assaulted verbally. And to be honest with you, there people don't give a crap about others. They don't care. They don't care about the victims. If they don't care about the ones who are assaulted here. They care about looking like they care. Liberals are excellent at that. They want to act like they care about the environment. They want to make it look like they're doing something for the environment. But when it comes to actually doing something for the environment, that's why there's such a difference between the old guard and the new guard. Because up until this newer generation, the millennials and the Generation Z, where they were actually putting into motion some of the things that they had learned, they found out that the generations before them they don't really care about helping the environment. They don't care about cleaning up the environment. They don't care about doing anything. They care about power and money and making it look like they care about other people and care about other things. So when people say we care about survivors, me too. We listen to survivors. We make sure we prosecute. No, they don't care, and we're seeing that. And it's happening it's happening on both sides of this, and it's difficult not to become cynical about this. It's difficult because you look at somebody like Dan Bongino. I'm never liked Dan Bongino. Never liked him before he got huge and popular. Never liked him while he was popular. Didn't like him while he was director of the FBI or assistant director, whatever it was that he was. Didn't like him when he worked for the government. Didn't like him when he left the government. I don't like the guy. I think he's just a loudmouth, and he runs his mouth as if he's some kind of expert. Now, of course, he does have a lot of knowledge and information, but nothing is happening. You can't leave a post like that after doing absolutely nothing. But his fans will continue to follow him because they don't care. And that's the cynical part of me that unfortunately takes over in these situations. I look at that, and you see it just on your regular, average, run-of-the-mill interactions with people. So when something like this disclosure happens, Donald Trump saying he's directing the FBI. I'm sorry, not the FBI. It says here that let me pull this up here so we can all share in the wonderful news story. I mean, now, albeit this is a fascinating conversation to have regarding UFOs and disclosures, etc. Sorry, I'm trying to find the preset that allows me to load up my... I think this might be it. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about the delay. All right, here we go. Trump says he's directing Pentagon to release any files on UFOs and alien and extraterrestrial life. President Trump on Thursday directed his administration to release files on UFOs and any alien and extraterrestrial life, an issue that has drawn decades of public fascination and spawned more than a few wild theories. In a Truth Social post, we'll pop that open as well. Take a look at that actual Truth Social post there. On Truth Social post, the president told Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other agency heads to begin the process of identifying and releasing any relevant news. Here we go. Based on the no, it doesn't show it all the way. Gotta love that. We'll get to that. It says here that Mr. Trump also called for release of any and all other information any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. It's not clear what files on UFOs might be released or what information they might contain. The Pentagon has tracked reports of what it calls unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP. So the Pentagon has tracked reports of what it calls unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, for decades, but the military said in a 2024 report there's no evidence that any government investigation into UAPs has confirmed the existence of extraterrestrial life. Mr. Trump's announcement. Where'd it go? Here we go. Mr. Trump's announcement came just days after one of his predecessors, former President Barack Obama, made waves by telling a podcaster that aliens are real. He later clarified that he never saw evidence of contact between humans and extraterrestrial life during his time in the White House, and he primarily believes that extraterrestrial life. He later, let me start this paragraph over because I'm kind of fumbling over my words here. Mr. Trump's announcement came just days after one of his predecessors, former President Barack Obama, made waves by telling a podcaster that aliens are real. He later clarified that he never saw evidence of contact between humans and extraterrestrial life during his time in the White House, and he primarily believes that extraterrestrial life is real because statistically the universe is so vast that the odds are good there is life out there. Asked Thursday about Obama's comments, Mr. Trump told reporters he isn't sure Asked Thursday about Obama's comments, Mr. Trump told reporters he isn't sure whether or not aliens exist, but added the former president made a big mistake and gave classified information. I may get him out of trouble by declassifying, Mr. Trump said. Boy. Sorry about that. That was a little loud there. But yeah, so the whole thing is kind of fishy to me. And it's fishy to me in that during the release of the Epstein Files, Obama talks about aliens. The question is asked to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, rather than seizing on an opportunity to go after the Obamas, whom he evidently dislikes so greatly and hates, instead he goes, I think I'll just declassify it. I'll just go ahead and declassify it. It seems, and again, that's the cynical part of me, but all of this on top of where it's going now, as far as when it's happening and whether or not it's happening for good or positive reasons or whatever the reason it is, that to me, the timing is a little strange. It's a little off. And now it's going to spark all these conversations because now, let me take a drink. The question also comes down, and this is really to anything. Is the government really going to release to us all of the information that it has? I mean, they still haven't released to us all the information from the Epstein Files. And I know that Trump had the JFK files declassified, but it wasn't the JFK files being declassified that helped people with the information about JFK's assassination. What helped with the information about JFK's assassination, what led to a lot of the details that we have now, are citizen reporters. Citizen reporters, people that jumped on there and followed the trails and followed the information. There's a lot of wild speculation that's going on there, absolutely. But with that wild speculation that happens, there also is truth. People put together information. They investigate. They find out information and try to find out how all of this goes together. So when the government talks about its investigations into unidentified aerial phenomena or UFOs or extraterrestrial life, when it talks about their investigation into this, you have to think whatever information we're getting is decades behind what they actually have. And if they were to release, let's say, that the technology that they have or some of the weaponry advancements that they have received or some of the medical advancements that have happened, if that has somehow come from extraterrestrial life, do you think they're going to tell people that? You're going to reveal to them, hey, this is actually an alien technology that we got from the planet Narthok. You know, I mean, it's not like they're going to tell us all of the information. So when people clamor and they're like, oh, the government's going to give you a redacted, it's going to hand you a piece of black cardboard. It's going to hand you a piece of black cardstock paper because that's the equivalent of what the government will release. And the government and Obama's like, I never saw anything that would resemble alien life while I was in the White House. Obviously, but I don't think I'm going to trust the government. Now, do I want the information that they have? Absolutely. Do I think they're going to release it all to us? Absolutely not. Do you think that there's certain information that's been, certain technology that's been destroyed? Absolutely. Because they're never going to let you go to the places that you need to go to actually see this technology in place. They're not going to show you the remnants of the Roswell crash. They're not going to show you legitimate pictures. They're not going to tell you, oh, yeah, by the way, we did recover an alien. We put it there. You imagine what that would do if the government disclosed that to people? I mean, it's not that people don't already believe that there is something out there. Whether you believe aliens are physical beings that exist on other planets, whether you believe that there is intelligent life hundreds of millions of light years away that are also on planets, or whether or not you believe that it's spiritual entities, or whether or not it's remnants or unclean spirits that left over from the pre-Adamites, or it's the spirit of the Nephilim, or it's demons, whatever you want to call it, there's something out there that exists. And most people attach labels to it. They call it something. They say, well, all those aliens are demons, because no other being could move like that. And then other people are like, well, those are absolutely aliens, and their technology has advanced so much that they are able to withstand. Their bodies, through an evolutionary process, are able to withstand the force that is exerted on a human body during warp speed. All of that it's all there, but it's all speculation. I mean, there are a lot of people, as that news story said, I think it said that there are, let me jump back up to that news story here. Where did it go? Trying to find that news story I was on a minute ago, because it does say that there's a huge. Okay, sorry. I thought it had a statistic in that about the amount of people that believe in extraterrestrial life or something like that. But even when people use the term extraterrestrial, that term extraterrestrial is just simply extra terra. It's outside, or not of this terra, of this earth. It's extra from where we are. It's extra from the planets that we are on, right? So it's not like it's to say the word the term extraterrestrial. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I don't think, and I might be changing the definition on the fly here. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be from outside this realm, this earth, outside our atmosphere, or outside in outer space. Extraterrestrial, I mean, there are people that believe in the flat earth, that believe that the that the extraterrestrials are just those beings that exist outside the ice wall. I might just do that real quick and show you what I'm talking about. My sister-in-law bought me a flat earth mouse pad for Christmas. And she also bought me a set of flat earth coasters. And there's the ice wall that goes about that. It's hilarious. I lost it when I opened the present from her. See if I can get this picture up to show you all. Okay. There we go. Oh, I can. This is nice. Hello there, Flat Earth. So here is, I don't know if it'll show my mouse or not, but this white that extends around, this is the common flat earth map that's accepted by those who are flat earthers. The white that's around the edge here is the ice wall. So if you look at this as if this is a bowl, essentially, that white is the ice wall that exists that holds the water within the ice wall. Okay. And then that's all the water, obviously. And here's the landmass, the continents, the Earth that we have. And this is how they explain that flat Earth exists, right? Well, outside of this, let me see if I can pull this out. I wasn't. Okay. Here we go. This is this is it. Perfect. There's that. There we go. Okay, so this is what is considered extra terra, right? It's a little large there. Let me see if I can somehow fix this and get it within the scope of our I might need to open that in another window. Appreciate your patience, everybody, whilst I do this. Here we go. I think now what this will do, this will allow me to have a larger picture on the side. Sometimes you just got to go with the conversation, right? Wherever that conversation leads you. And that's why sometimes these things aren't fully prepared when I am on and I'm doing it live like this with y'all. Okay. So this is the world that exists beyond the ice wall per se. Now you have within the Earth down here in this area here. I'll maximize it. Where it says Pacific Ocean, this white around there is going to be what you would see there is the ice wall. That's where we exist on this particular plane. It will not let me show my mouse for some reason. Okay. So if you look right there in the center, that center piece there, that white is the ice wall that surrounds our plane of existence, our Terra. Inside there, you see North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, etc. You see all of that. Outside of that ice wall, you have, and somebody has gone through and named these. So you have your Saltaire Ocean, your Altuan Ocean, Neptunian Ocean, Ocean of Nu. You have the Ocean Ocean, Atum, Gymnaea as your Terra as your planets. I'm sorry, not as your planets, as your Terra, as your other worlds. And then you have a mountain ring that surrounds that. And then outside of that, you have another Terra of existence. See? And you have all of these other planet names. And then outside of that, you have what they call the scorched wastes, the frozen wastes, the walls of Asgard, right? The abyssal ocean. Atlantis is out here as well. So when you look at our existence here in the middle, but within this ice wall there, that's our Terra. That's our world, right? When you go outside of that, if somebody were to visit from one of those other terras, one of those other realms or planes of existence, then they would be extra terra. They would be outside of our terra. They would be additional to our terra. So they would be They would be extraterrestrials that are visiting us from those other planes of existence, which I think is pretty fascinating. Let's see. So they're in that existence. That could be where extraterrestrials come from. That could be where we are seeing these aliens visiting from. Let's see. That's a possibility. It's a possibility. It's a fun conversation to have as well. But there are people out there who believe that these are demons. I've actually got a video. I was watching it before I came on. It's an interview that I did several years ago. Some of you have probably seen that video. But it is me interviewing a guy by the name of Joe Jordan from the CE4 Research. And what he does is it Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind is what he calls it. But the research that they're doing is to interview people that have had contact with some type of extraterrestrial, what they call extraterrestrial. They interview these folks, and then they compile all this research, and they try to find similarities. And they found similarities of false memories, implanted memories, and then their conclusion is that these aliens are subject to the name of Jesus Christ and stop impacting people and stop affecting people when you pray in the name of Christ, which to them says these are under the authority of Christ. They also say that they are demonic entities because they're doing negative or bad things. They never point to Jesus, essentially, is what they're saying in these. So you have that understanding of who aliens are. And this, I know, I don't want to get the mass distraction. I don't want to be wrapped up in the mass distraction of this and allow ourselves to be distracted from the greater problems that we have. What would it matter if aliens existed on another planet? What would it matter if we were being visited by beings from another realm if we can't exact justice and carry out regular human activities when it comes to bringing to justice pedophiles, child rapists, cannibals, and pedophile rings? I mean, it really doesn't matter. I mean, like, at this point, it's like, aliens, we need you to hold off on all visitation, all contact. We've got some stuff we have to work out on our own here, okay? So once we get this stuff taken care of here, then we'll get back to the conversation about whether or not you're real, whether or not you exist, and what type of interactions that are being caused right now. It's almost, it almost feels wrong to have any other conversations about other stuff when this is going on and nothing is happening. All right, now another thing I want to jump into today is I brought this up, or did I bring it up last week? The Trump administration, and I've said this for years, probably somewhere between the middle of his first term. Trump has an authoritarian bent. I don't care that at this point I was supporting Trump. You know, I was a Trumper back then. Trump has an authoritarian bent. He is a billionaire businessman, which he pretty much earned because of his parents. But he's a billionaire businessman who runs companies, who tells people to do something, and they simp for him and do it because they want to be around him or they don't want to lose their job. So when he tells his staff to do things, they go and do those things. When he became president, he thought that authority would be transferred as well, that as the president, the most powerful person in the free world, quotey fingers, that he would be able to snap his fingers and do whatever he wanted to, and it would get done without any resistance. Well, he lost his ever-loving mind this week, talking about how he could destroy the country if he wanted to, but he's not allowed to charge $1 in tariffs. Well, we're not going to let you ruin the country, okay? But regardless, he's always had this kind of authoritarian bent where he snaps his fingers, he wants stuff done, he wants unquestioned obedience, he doesn't want anybody to speak out against him, and he doesn't want anybody to tell him that he's wrong. He absolutely hates it, okay? And I believe that that's part of the reason that DHS is going so hard against ICE's critics. Not ICE, not the fact that ICE is doing unconstitutional, unjust activities in the streets of America. No, the Trump administration wants to go after the citizens of the United States of America who are exercising their constitutionally God-given right of freedom of speech. In this article from Reason, it says the Electronic Frontier Foundation urged tech companies to resist federal demands for data about users who have been critical of the administration. So the DHS has actually sent hundreds of subpoenas to, again, let me just get this up here so we can all share in the joy together. There we go. Now it's all jacked up from the last time I used it. I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew. I'm all jacked up on Monster right now. Monster and coffee. Monster and MyPillow coffee, which, by the way, if you go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Barker, you can save up to 50% on coffee. That's right. And Mike Lindell does not even know I exist. He probably wouldn't even care about my existence, so don't take out my opinions and act like they're his, because they're not. Okay, so here we go. This is DHS sends hundreds of subpoenas to social media firms for data on anonymous ICE critics. This is from the New York Times. On Friday, the New York Times reported that the Department of Homeland Security is expanding its efforts to identify Americans opposing Immigration and Customs Enforcement by sending legal requests to Google, Meta, Reddit, and Discord for account data. DHS officials say they are using administrative subpoenas to investigate threats to ICE agents and cited their broad administrative subpoena authority ramping up use last year to identify anonymous social media accounts. Tech company review processed and user Tech company review processes and user notifications say Google, Meta, Reddit, and Discord review subpoenas in recent months, sometimes comply and inform users unless legally barred. In court filings, civil liberties lawyers said many subpoenas were withdrawn before a judge could rule, leaving targeted users with 10 to 14 days to challenge, and the ACLU has filed motions to quash requests. The trend accelerated after the department ramped up subpoenas last year, including a September 11th Meta request, while Tom Homan, the White House border czar, urged to create a database. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. So here's the article from Reason Magazine that we're going to work through. I would say if you're new to the show and watching, this is not how it usually goes, but that would be an absolute lie. And anybody that watches regularly could tell you this is how it pretty much goes when I try to pull up an article to share on the screen with you, because OBS, as awesome as OBS is, it's also got some downfalls, and I haven't quite mastered that yet. So here we go. So last week, the Electronic Frontier Foundation urged companies to resist federal demands for data about users who have been critical of the administration. DHS has consistently targeted people engaged in First Amendment activity, warns Mario Trujillo, a senior staff attorney for the Civil Liberties Group. Among other things, the agency has issued subpoenas to technology companies to unmask or locate people who have documented ICE's activities in their community, criticized the government, or attended protests. Now, there are going to be people out there who say, well, they're impeding federal investigations. You can't impede federal investigation. You can't do that. This is people telling folks where ICE is located, and they've also people who have criticized the government, also people who have attended protests. So this is not, this is the people out there who say that these are the people who support January 6th. You can't support an administration going after folks because they've attended protests, they've criticized local government, or they've documented ISIS activities in their community. You cannot You cannot support that and call yourself a constitutional Republican. You can't support that and call yourself a constitutional Democrat. You cannot support an administration going after people who criticize the government or attended protests. And they know what they're doing is wrong because they do it, they get the data, they get the information, and then they withdraw their subpoena. They're like, oh, no, we're good. I know, we don't need that. We don't need it. We just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. And the tech companies have already revealed the names and information and profiles of these people. So the government already has it, but now they don't have to go through the pain of fighting those subpoenas in court, so they withdraw them. That is beyond unethical, and I don't know how people can stand for that. Trujillo emphasizes that the subpoenas are unlawful and that the Department of Homeland Security has been leery of testing their legitimacy. In November, DHS withdrew a subpoena seeking details about Instagram users who posted about ICE raids in Los Angeles rather than defend the document in court. EFS recommends that the tech companies abide by recommendations developed with the ACLU of Northern California. Among other things, it urges that subpoena recipients fight the demands in court, inform targeted users so they can secure legal assistance, and resist gag orders to seek and to prevent recipients from EFF recommends that tech companies abide by recommendations developed with the ACLU of Northern California. Among other things, it urges that subpoena recipients fight the demands in court, inform targeted users so they can secure legal assistance, and resist gag orders that seek to prevent recipients from warning users and publicly discussing the situation. If this were any other administration, if the Obama administration were doing this over people that were critical of the Affordable Care Act, if they were doing this over people that were critical that Obama was separating families and placing kids in detention centers when he was president, if they were critical, if George H.W. Bush were going after people who were critical of 9/11 and the investigation of 9/11, who criticized the government, if any other administration, if Biden had done this about COVID or the vaccine, if Biden had done this about COVID, people would have lost their minds. But now, nary a word is said about this because, ICE. It's depopulating the United States from all the brown people that the Republicans don't want. It's all about law and order, right? You can't just be here illegally. So anybody that's helping somebody that's here illegally, pretty sure they said that in Nazi Germany too. I wonder what would happen. I mean, I don't know. Let's say this was, let's say the government was rounding up a group of people. And they were sending them to concentration camps. And the resistors, the protesters, were documenting the activities of those folks who were, taking people of a certain ethnicity and putting them in concentration camps. Let's say that there was a group of people that were critical of the fact that the government were rounding up people and putting them in concentration camps. Or let's say they attended the protests of those organizations that were rounding up certain people and putting them in concentration camps. Let's say that was happening. Would you be all right with it? Because it's Trump, right? It's okay if Trump does it. As U.S. citizens, we have the right to keep each other informed about what our government officials are doing and how they're doing it, commented Mark Hodges, one of the plaintiffs. The problem is that the Trump administration doesn't recognize that right. In December, Reason's C.J. Sierramella asked a DHS representative if the feds considered following or recording federal agents to be obstruction of justice. He was told, "That sure sounds like obstruction of justice." So, following or recording federal agents is obstruction of justice? That's a constitutionally protected form of free speech. You can't tell somebody you're not allowed to film. They are public. They are public servants. Since then, after violent clashes in Minneapolis, culminating in 2 killings of protesters by federal agents, the FBI has opened an investigation into Signal group chats used by opponents of the federal immigration crackdown. So if you're using Signal, now you thought Signal was safe. People started using Signal because it was encrypted. They weren't being monitored by Apple. Their pictures weren't being monitored by Apple. Their texts weren't being monitored by Apple. No, it's encrypted. And now the FBI is saying, F you, just a big old fat middle finger to your civil liberties and your constitutional rights, because now they're opening up investigations. I'm sorry, they have already opened up investigations into Signal group chats that are opposing immigration crackdown. This is a Justice Department that is focused on anything but justice. You have an administration that is more concerned about going over. You have an administration that is more concerned about fighting people who wronged Trump in the past. Oh, that was loud. You have an administration that's more concerned with fighting people who have wronged Trump in the past. You have an administration who is more concerned about prosecuting citizens who are carrying out their constitutionally protected freedom of speech. You have an administration whose Department of Justice is monitoring signal groups who are critical of the immigration crackdown. And yet we still haven't seen any arrests in the Epstein Files. This administration cares more about people that don't like it than it does about actual pedophiles. You have an administration that is more concerned with prosecuting opponents than prosecuting actual perpetrators of crimes. How is this the law and order candidate? How is this law and justice? How is this restoring order to our nation? It's not. It's causing chaos. Because now people can't speak out. That sort of signal chat, here we go. That sort of signal chat being coordinated with individuals, not just locally in Minnesota, but maybe even around the country, Director Kash Patel commented. If that leads to a break in the federal statute or a violation of some law, then we're going to arrest people. You haven't even arrested anybody from the Epstein Files yet. Oh my goodness gracious. Absolutely ridiculous. Is Rumble not? Yeah, there it is. It's playing. Yeah, Deb, I'm on Rumble. Sorry, just saw a comment on the on Facebook asking if I was on Rumble, and yes, I am on Rumble. Okay, sorry about that. I'll just take this moment and pause and take a drink. So just think about that. This is the FBI Director Kash Patel. That sort of signal chat being coordinated with individuals, not just locally in Minnesota, but maybe even around the country, FBI Director Kash Patel commented. If that leads to a break in federal statute or a violation of some law, then we're going to arrest people. You haven't even arrested anybody out of the Epstein Files, and you're going after people who are exercising their free speech. I think your priorities are in the wrong place. Patel claims the investigation will result in arrests if signal chats lead to violations of law, but that's a big if that could be applied to any conversation at any time. Recording, tracking, and sharing information about government enforcers is perfectly legal. Let's think about this a minute. Patel claims the investigation will result in arrests if signal chats lead to violations of law, but that's a big if that could be applied to any conversation at any time. And how do you know unless you're monitoring? How do you know unless you're tracking? And how do you do that without a warrant? And how do you have a warrant without probable cause? And how do you have probable cause unless you're tracking? And how do you track without a warrant? And how do you get a warrant without probable cause? And how do you get probable cause without tracking? And how do you track without? It's a big, ridiculous circle. What the FBI is doing The FBI has proof. They have enough info in the Epstein files to go after actual traffickers of children. But instead, the nerds at the FBI are staring at signal chats, waiting to see if a crime is committed. If something is done wrong. These people who monitor this in the FBI, the people who monitor these signal chats in the FBI, they're the hall monitors at school. They're the people that walk the halls to make sure the other kids aren't late. These are the kids that when the teacher leaves the class, this is the nerd that they put. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say nerd. This is the kind of kid that when the teacher leaves the class, this is the suck up, the brown noser that they put at the front of the room who writes names on the board of people who are talking. That's who these folks are. If you do something wrong, it is a complete and utter waste of time. They're just waiting to see if somebody breaks the law. You have legitimate proof, enough evidence to go after people who actually did break the law. Recording and doxing cops is legal. This is going to be a controversial one here. Let's see. I hope that Deb isn't having any trouble. Okay. Sorry, I'm just wondering why there was some issues with, there we go. All right. It says, recording and doxing cops is legal. While the Supreme Court itself hasn't yet faced the issue squarely, the 7 federal circuits that have done so, the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, all agree that the First Amendment protects the right to record police performing their duties in public. Points out Walter Olson, a senior fellow at the Cato Institute's Robert A. Levy Center for Constitutional Studies. The Trump administration must have some lawyers on staff who told them the same thing. So, federal officials have complained that critics are doxing, collecting and publicizing information about federal agents that is perhaps illegal-ish. Videotaping ICE law enforcement and posting videos about them online is doxing our agents, DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs Tricia McLaughlin told the Center for Media and Democracy last September. We will prosecute those who illegally harass ICE agents to the fullest extent of the law. But doxing isn't illegally harassing. It's not illegal anything. Government officials and employees don't enjoy special immunity from doxing, writes David L. Hudson Jr., Associate Professor of Law at Belmont University for FIRE. Merely disclosing the names of government agents or places where they carry out their official duties is constitutionally protected speech, especially when tied to political criticism. So you're entering into the public sphere. You don't have the same type of immunity that a private citizen does. You don't get any kind of immunity. You shouldn't, at least. I rephrase that because somebody's like, well, actually, cops are allowed to do stuff. They're not allowed to do stuff and not allowed to be charged for it. I know you're going to jump all over every little thing I say about that, so I apologize that they have some type of legal immunity, but that doesn't make it right. If collected information is then used to do something illegal, like attack people in their homes, that's a different matter, but it's that extra action that violates the law. Okay. If collected information is then used to do something illegal, like attack people in their homes, that's a different matter. But it's that extra action that violates the law, not the gathering of faces, names, and addresses. Unfortunately, the administration, like many of its predecessors, seems to have a problem with criticism and opposition of any sort. Now, that's a very important thing to add on to this. You can record a police officer and you ask them for their name and badge number. They have to give it to you. They cannot not give it to you. They have to. All right. Now, if you have that information and you publish it online, that's publicly available information. It's if you use that information, for instance, you remember the old Yellow Pages? Yellow Pages were just essentially big advertisement books that doxed everybody. And you could find somebody's name. You could find somebody's address. How do you think Terminator located Sarah Connor when he came back into 1984? When he came back from time to find the mother of the resistance, he pulled up the yellow pages or the white pages. He pulled up the phone book and started looking through the phone book and going to all the Sarah Connor addresses. That's doxing. But if you use that to do something like the Terminator did, that's when it becomes illegal. You can't do that to anybody. That's illegal. But the problem with it is that any opposition, and I like how they point this out too, it's any opposition to an administration that they have a problem with. Administrations don't like being questioned. The Trump administration conflates opposition with terrorism. In the wake of the assassination of conservative figure Charlie Kirk, when many Americans were understandably profoundly upset by the crime, the White House issued a memo charging that common threads animating this violent conduct include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi followed up with a directive to federal prosecutors and law enforcement agencies to target domestic terrorists, identified in part by extreme viewpoints on immigration, radical gender ideology, and anti-American sentiment. Now, we covered these extensively when Trump released these. You can go back and see the videos. We covered these extensively. This is where we see that I don't want to open this up in a new window so it doesn't pop up there. This is where we see the conflation of domestic terrorists and people exercising their God-given, constitutionally recognized rights. These statements here: extreme viewpoints on immigration, radical gender ideology, and anti-American sentiment. I mean, you could break those down to anything. Those are so vague. Those are so malleable that anybody can be considered an extremist and domestic terrorist. And that's the path that they're leading towards. That's what they're going towards. Imagine if somebody is president who has an extreme view on hell. That when you die, you go to hell and you burn there for eternity with no respite at all. And that person decides that views of universalism or universal reconciliation or Kirk Cameron talking about it all of a sudden now are breaking laws, so they go after them. That's what this allows. Imagine if you flip this. This is so vague, this statement, extreme viewpoints on immigration. Let's say you have a Democrat in office, and they feel that rounding people up and deporting them is an extreme viewpoint on immigration. Let's say that there's a Democrat in office or a liberal in office who believes that a person who says that there are only two genders is believing in extreme radical gender ideology. Maybe that person believes that maybe you have a liberal in office and they believe that a person who thinks that who believes in manifest destiny is an anti-American sentiment. They can then call them domestic terrorists, round them up, and charge them for that. You see? You have to think beyond where we are right now. But you're like, oh, they'll never do. Come on. You know they'll do it. All right, let's get back to this. This type of terminology, this type of language regarding U.S. citizens is beyond extreme. It's true that these viewpoints can inspire crimes. Just look at Kirk's unaliving, for starters. But if you target beliefs rather than violent actions, you go down a dangerous path that threatens everybody. Under the last administration, the FBI investigated fans of the Gadsden flag and other Revolutionary War imagery. Now, again, this is... No, I'm not going to grow tired of telling you all about this stuff. It's true that these viewpoints can inspire in crimes. Just look at Kirk's unaliving, for starters. But if you target beliefs rather than violent actions, you go down a dangerous path that threatens everybody. Under the last administration, the FBI investigated fans of the Gadsden flag and other Revolutionary War imagery. In both cases, government officials clearly targeted opponents, not crimes. The intent was to stifle people's right to dissent, not address real threats to the public. That is a huge and important sentence. If you target beliefs rather than violent crimes, government officials clearly targeted opponents, not crimes. The intent was to stifle people's right to dissent, not address real threats to the public. That's why the EFF, fire, tech companies, and regular people need to resist efforts to investigate critics of the government and to shut down communications platforms. They need to resist not because the critics are always right, but because governments can't be permitted to target and muzzle their opponents. How true that is. And there's within that article, you're hard pressed to find something you disagree with. You can try to go through there and try to point out where things are wrong if you want to. But when you have past administrations that puts out bulletins on symbols used by anti-government or anti-authority violent extremists, and it's it ends up being Gadsden flags, upside down flags, anything that questions the authority of that particular government or the administration's policies at that time, then you're in danger. You're in horrible, horrible danger. Let's see what else I want to jump into today. I'll check the comments here. Let's see. I hope you were able to find me, Deb. I've seen Audrey, by the way, on Facebook. I don't know if she's been in the show. I think she watched the show last week or the week before. I can't remember. But she was running behind and she jumped in on the show at that time. So we've got Gifted Guru, Mind of Zoe, and Deb hanging out with us over in the Rumble chat. Thank you all very much for doing that. Same old things. We're angry about the same old things. So today we're angry about government well, I am. I don't know about anybody else out there, but I'm angry about government overreach. I'm angry about the injustice. I'm angry about the fact that there are no prosecutions yet, no indictments yet from the Epstein Files, yet there's time to monitor signal chats. Talked a little bit about the flat earth as well. You can jump back in on that conversation. Huh. I don't know how in the world am I'm trying to figure out, am I following this page? Sorry. Okay. Let's jump back in over here. All right, so I had talked last week, by the way. I want to do a little bit of an update here. I had talked last week about doing a Bible study, and I'm kind of torn on how I'm going to be presenting that and how I'm going to be talking about that. I'm very excited about getting to it, though, and very excited about looking into it. The problem is I'm trying to... Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting to know. All right. So I'm looking into getting that set up and how I'm going to be doing that, and a book study / Bible study. And I've got a chart of sorts that I'm thinking about using, but I've got some reservations about using it for a couple of reasons. But I want to show you here. All right, yeah, I'm having a bit of of an issue determining whether or not I'm going to use this particular chart. But one of the books that I'm considering starting the book study on, I've been reading through this past week, and it's really been a fascinating read, and glad that I'm getting back into it. And I'm going to be releasing that Bible study coming up here soon. All right, hey, yeah, Deb, it does look like a frisbee. And for those that weren't here, I had this. So, all right, yeah. I had a thought this morning. Anyway, but before I get too far off into that, don't forget, by the way, to like and share the show with other people so that they can join along with us and hang out if and they want to. The book that I'm reading through right now is. I'm going to go ahead and show you all the cover of it. This will probably be the best one. All right. Here is. I followed this ministry for several years, and one of my first forays into this ministry was a book called God's Ghostbusters. It was really awesome. But here's the book that I'm thinking about doing. It's called Forbidden Gates: How Genetics, Robotics, Artificial Intelligence, Synthetic Biology, Nanotechnology, and Human Enhancement Herald the Dawn of Techno-Dimensional Spiritual Warfare. That's the title of the book. The full title of the book. I'm being serious. I'm not joking. That is the full title of the book. And so I am, what I want to do is I want to take this book, and I've got a study guide for it as well, and I want to work through it with people. What in the world? I want to work through it with folks, with people who are interested in working through it with me. And then as we read through it, there's also a study guide and a teacher's guide that goes along with the book. And it really what it does is it takes all of the things that we have here and all those robotics, technology, et cetera, all those things. And it looks at them from a biblical perspective, and it tries to understand, does the Bible talk about this stuff? Is there anything in the Bible that relates to what we're facing now? So the full name of the book again, Deb, you're going to make me read that name of that book again? Hold on just a second. I'm just playing. I got to pull it back up. Forbidden Gates: How Genetics, Robotics, Artificial Intelligence, Synthetic Biology, Nanotechnology, and Human Enhancement Herald the Dawn of Techno-Dimensional Spiritual Warfare. That's the full title of the book. And what I want to do is I want to read through the book with folks, and then as we read through it, do some study questions, and then release those probably about an hour or so long, maybe an hour and a half. And I'm going to be doing that here on Rumble and on Substack and all that stuff. And then for the subscribers, I'm trying to develop the idea for the subscribers. For the subscribers, you're going to Tom and Nita Horn. If you go to Skywatch TV, you can also look on Amazon. Let me see if I can find the actual. I've got a boatload of their. I had a lot of their books, and then I lost them all in the fire. And I don't know if you can hit links or not, but there's the link to Skywatch TV's book here. But it says, in recent years, astonishing technology. In recent years, astonishing technological developments have pushed the frontiers of humanity toward far-reaching morphological transformation that promises in the very near future to redefine what it means to be human. An international, intellectual, and fast-growing cultural movement known as transhumanism intends the use of genetics, robotics, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology, or GRIN technologies, as tools that will radically redesign our minds, our memories, our physiology, our offspring, and even perhaps our very souls. Our technological, cultural, and metaphysical shift now underway unapologetically forecasts a future dominated by this new species of unrecognizably superior humans, and applications under study now to make this dream reality are being funded by thousands of government and private research facilities around the world. As the reader will learn, this includes, among other things, rewriting human DNA and combining men with beasts, a fact that some university studies and transhumanists believe will not only alter our bodies and souls, but could ultimately open a door to contact with unseen intelligence. As a result, new modes of perception between things visible and invisible are expected to challenge the church in ways that are historically and theologically unprecedented. Without comprehending what is quickly approaching in related disciplines of research and development, vast numbers of believers could be paralyzed by the most fantastic and most far-reaching supernatural implications. The destiny of each individual, as well as the future of their family, will depend on their knowledge of the new paradigm and their preparedness to face it head-on. Now, it's down between that and another book. I want to double check something here too. One of the first books I ever read besides God's Ghostbusters was another book called Nephilim Stargates. And this is a few years old, but the phenomenal thing about that book is it talks about the Nephilim. It talks about the let's just get you just a second here, because I'm kind of in that mode right now. I'm kind of in the whole Nephilim mode, and the reason is because I've had a few people ask me about that, talking about the Book of Enoch, and it really does kind of give you an idea of what's going on in the world. So I will let you know, though, which one of those books I'm going to do. And if you're interested in joining me for this for a Bible study, I don't even know if people are interested, to be honest with you, in joining me for that. But if you are, just let me know, and I will keep you apprised of any of the changes and updates that will be there. Okay. But I unfortunately need to end the program here today. I appreciate everybody that has been hanging out with me, and Deb, I'm going to encourage you to, if you want to get the book, go right ahead. Forbidden Gates. It's a phenomenal book. It's down between that and another book that I'm looking into, but I will let y'all know, like I said. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and jump off here. Thanks for everybody for hanging out with me. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.